Imagine if tomorrow the federal government just decided to completely erase North Dakota from the map.
Right, just totally gone.
Yeah, and then, just for good measure, they split California into 3 completely different pieces.
Oh, wow.
And maybe rename Texas, all without ever needing the permission of the people who actually live there.
That would cause absolute chaos.
Exactly. I mean, in the United States, that is constitutionally impossible. But in India, that is basically just another Tuesday.
It really is. I mean, when you look at a globe, it's incredibly comforting to think of nations as these fixed, solid entities.
Right, like they've always been there.
Yeah, we just assume geography is static and that borders are drawn in permanent ink. But the source material we are looking at today reveals something completely counterintuitive.
Which is what makes it so fascinating.
Totally. To understand the world's largest democracy, you really have to understand that geography is legally designed to be, flexible.
Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We've got a really amazing stack of sources in front of us today, detailing the evolution of Indian states.
Specifically digging into Articles 1 through 4 of the Indian Constitution.
Right. And our mission for you today is to understand how a nation literally shapes, reshapes, and defines its own physical existence. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Before we can even talk about how the map changes, we really have to start at the absolute foundation.
Makes sense.
Like, what do we even call this massive landmass, and what is the legal glue holding it all together?
I mean, the sources start right at Article 1, and the wording is this brilliant historical compromise.
It really is. It defines the country as India, that is, Bharat.
I saw that dual identity right at the top of the page. Why did they need 2 names in the very first sentence of the Constitution?
Well, because the Constituent Assembly, the people writing the document, were completely split.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you had traditionalists who wanted to use the ancient name Bharat, which reflects deep cultural and historical roots.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then you had modernists who argued that India was the name recognized internationally, especially by the United Nations.
So they just adopted both?
Exactly. They just went with both.
Yeah.
But the second part of Article 1 is where the real structural blueprint is laid out.
Right. It describes the country explicitly as a union of states.
Yes. A union, not a federation.
Even though, from what I understand, India operates with a federal government system, like they have a central government and state governments.
Right.
So why insist on the word union?
The sources highlight Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's specific logic behind this phrasing.
He was the chief architect of the Constitution. Right?
He was. And he had 2 major reasons for this wording. First, he wanted to make it crystal clear that the Indian Federation is not the result of a voluntary agreement among independent states.
Wait, so the states didn't get together and decide to form a country?
No, not at all. The country was formed first, and then it was divided into states.
Ah, okay.
And second, because there was no prior agreement, the states have absolutely no right to secede.
So once you're in, you're in.
Precisely. You cannot leave. The country is an integral whole, divided internally purely for the convenience of administration.
The sources make a really sharp contrast here with the United States to illustrate this point.
They do, yeah.
Like in the U.S., the central government cannot just change a state's borders without that state's formal consent.
Right.
The phrasing they use for America is an indestructible union of indestructible states.
Exactly.
So to use an analogy, the USA is like a house made of Lego blocks that have been permanently superglued together.
Thank God.
You can never change the individual blocks themselves. But India is like a Lego house where the central government can constantly take apart the interior rooms.
Yeah, knock down a wall, split a master bedroom into 3 tiny closets.
Right, and rebuild them however they want, as long as they don't tear down the outer walls of the house itself.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. India is an indestructible union of destructible states.
Destructible states? Wow.
Yeah, the union government can destroy or alter the states, whereas the state governments can never destroy the union.
But wait, if the states are legally destructible, does the Constitution give the central government literal map-drawing superpowers?
What's fascinating here is how this leads perfectly into the immense powers granted by Articles 2 and 3 of the Constitution.
Because the answer is yes.
Essentially, yes. The central government absolutely has map-drawing superpowers.
I'm trying to picture how this doesn't just result in the central government redrawing the map every time they get bored. What is the actual mechanism here?
Well, think of Articles 2 and 3 as dealing with the outside and the inside.
Okay, I see them mentioned here.
Article 2 grants Parliament the power to admit new states into the Union, or establish new states that were not previously part of India.
So that's about bringing foreign territory inside the outer walls of your Lego house.
Exactly. Article 3, on the other hand, is the internal engine. It is strictly for internal readjustment.
So, under Article 3, Parliament can separate territories, unite two states together, increase or diminish a state's area.
Or even just change your state's boundary or its name.
But surely the people living in those states get a say, right? What is the process for actually pushing that button?
There is a specific process. A bill contemplating these internal changes can only be introduced in Parliament with the prior recommendation of the President.
Okay.
And before recommending it, the President is required to refer the bill to the state legislature that's going to be affected.
Asking for their views, right?
Yeah, asking for their views within a specific time frame.
Okay, so the state does get to weigh in. They get to vote on their own borders.
Well, here's the twist. Parliament can completely ignore the state's views.
Wait, really?
Really. The President or Parliament is not bound by what the state legislature says at all.
Even if the state overwhelmingly votes against it?
Even then. If they submit their objection perfectly on time, the central government can just proceed anyway.
Wow. So the state legislature in this scenario is basically just a suggestion box that goes straight into a paper shredder if the central government disagrees.
Effectively, yes. And to make this power even more frictionless, Article 4 declares that laws made under Articles 2 and 3 are not considered formal constitutional amendments.
Meaning what, exactly?
This means Parliament can pass them with a simple legislative majority. They don't need a massive two-thirds supermajority to redraw the internal map.
But hold on, let's push this to its logical limit. If Parliament can diminish a state's area with a simple majority, can they just take a chunk of an Indian state and hand it over to a foreign country?
You mean like ceding territory?
Yeah, like, oops, we accidentally gave away half of Punjab.
Well, that exact hypothetical became a massive real-world crisis in 1960.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's famously known as the Bar Union case. The central government decided to cede a small part of West Bengal, known as the Bar Union, to Pakistan to settle a border dispute.
I can imagine people were not happy about that.
It led to enormous political agitation. People were furious. So the president officially asked the Supreme Court for their interpretation of the Constitution.
And what did the court say? Does diminishing a state mean you can give the land to someone else entirely?
The Supreme Court ruled no. They said Article 3's power to diminish a state is only for internal readjustments.
Okay, that makes sense.
It does not cover ceding sovereign Indian territory to a foreign country. To give land away, you can't just use a simple majority.
So what do you need?
You do need a full, formal constitutional amendment under Article 368. That is a much, much higher legal bar.
Got it.
They actually had to pass the 9th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1960 to officially transfer that specific territory.
So if handing over even a tiny piece of land requires a massive constitutional amendment, settling actual complex border disputes must be a complete political nightmare.
Oh, it is.
Have they ever managed to do it on a large scale?
They have, and it required a monumental effort. The sources highlight the 100th Constitutional Amendment Act in 2015 between India and Bangladesh.
Right. I've seen pictures of this border. It was famously one of the most complicated borders on planet Earth.
It really was. It dated all the way back to the 1947 Radcliffe Award, which was the line drawn by the British during partition.
And it left these weird anomalies, right?
Yeah, it left India and Bangladesh with these bizarre geographical anomalies called enclaves.
Like little islands of one country completely surrounded by the other.
Exactly. Imagine a pocket of Indian territory, completely enclosed within Bangladesh. And inside that Indian pocket, there might even be a smaller pocket of Bangladesh territory.
Dots within dots. That sounds crazy.
It was an administrative and humanitarian nightmare. The people living there essentially had no access to government services from their home country.
So how did they fix it?
To fix this, the two nations agreed to a massive swap. India transferred 111 enclaves to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh transferred 51 to India.
Wow.
But because India was officially transferring sovereign territory outward, Parliament had to pass that 100th constitutional amendment to make it legal.
I am so fascinated by the reality of 1947 because we are sitting here talking about these incredibly clean, abstract, legal mechanisms.
Right.
But the British didn't exactly leave behind a neatly organized grid. What did the central government actually inherit on day one of independence?
You've hit on the core tension of this entire subject. The legal framework had to be applied to an incredibly messy, chaotic ground reality.
How bad was it?
Well, the British ruled India in two totally different ways. You had the British provinces, which were under direct British administration.
Okay.
But then you had the princely states.
I am looking at this number in the sources, and it is staggering. There were 552 princely states.
Yes, 552 separate territories ruled by local monarchs who had varying degrees of autonomy under the British crown.
That is a lot of kings.
And the Indian Independence Act basically told these princes, hey, the British are leaving. You now have three choices.
Which were?
You can join the new Dominion of India, you can join the new Dominion of Pakistan, or you can remain completely independent.
That sounds like a recipe for the subcontinent shattering into hundreds of tiny independent kingdoms.
It was a very real threat. But through an immense diplomatic campaign led by Vallabhbhai Patel, 549 of those princely states joined India